So I was from the lower classes. So to escape from something that people wait for you, because people always want to dictate what you have to speak, what you're going to expose, how. But I know today, I know that there's a space of internet and this possibility of being the author of the script. You are going to write what you're going to speak, what you want to show, gave me the possibility of escaping from this imposed place. Would you like to continue? Thank you. And I'm going to apologize because I speak very fast. So in some moments, not even I understand what I'm speaking because I speak very fast. But I'm going to try to speak slowly. And for me to start talking about this, it's very important because it has a direct connection with this quilombo. I speak very fast, and when I started making my videos, people said that I screamed. And I understood that I spoke loud sometimes, screaming, because I had so many things to say. And I spent my whole life without being heard. So there was a kind of despair to leave my message. When I get on the stage, I started crying. I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm a woman from the Candomblé. I'm the daughter of Oxum, and I believe in the ancestrality. And there's no place where I sit down or step on that I don't imagine who came before me. I can only form a quilombo. I can only be in the social media because other black women fought when I didn't even imagine to fight. So Beatriz Nascimento went there and broke many limitations. I only exist because Lélia Gonçalves did this. I can only form this quilombo because of these women. So maybe this emotion I feel that I cannot explain has to do with what Gabi was saying. I can make an observation about it. When I start at internet as any other place is an excludent that makes people sick. And it's very important to say that the majority of people that work with the internet are sick. Sick. Many times we are talking about embracing, welcoming, aquilombamento, but at the end of the day, we sleep alone. So many times our black body serving as reference of a representativity, of inspiration, is still being whipped. So I'm not complaining. I am aware of how much the internet changed my life and the life of the others that are close to me. My mother, my son, my children. But how many times I was alone when I had a panic attack, when there's someone that doesn't know my story. Maybe this is my emotion because many times we wait to depart to be acknowledged. So Ana Beatriz Nascimento only got this place after she was shot because she tried to defend her friend. Lélia Gonçalves was only recognized as a black feminist after she died. So maybe we have a fetish to wait people to depart to acknowledge their work. So it's very painful to leave trying to prove that we deserve to be respected. This is the constant quilombo where we are fighting to exist and to resist. And many times we are going to be ridicularized to be there. I remember Milton Santos said, I was said that we need to occupy place that tries, spaces to try to kill us, that tries to kill us, to pass the message. When Gabi is in the internet, I was remembering when Gabi was the first black woman with a curly hair, afro hair, that we know what is to have this afro hair. I know how much this reverberates in my life today, up to today. How many times I pass through transition and I go back again to that place. I don't know if I'm that beautiful, pretty, or attractive because I wasn't educated to love my hair. And we know how much this is cruel. They ate our self esteem. So when I remember that Gabi closed a partnership with a great beauty products mark brand, and because we know how difficult it is to have our afro hair, a hair that's not going to be completely wet. We know how many times we are ridicularized in this space. So, Gabi, you are an vanguard person because and you came with your hair beauty products. We have to understand that this quilombo, this grouping, I don't defend that we have to love each other. I defend that we have to humanize ourselves. We're not going to enjoy everybody, and that's okay. But something is very important. I cannot forget the stories of the ones that came before me. For me, to form a quilombo is to respect people's stories, building a collective process. Because for me, to be here, it seems like an individual achievement, truly is the result of the legacies of women that came before me and said, we are not going to allow that there are no women like us in this space. I only exist because they existed before me.
Né? Como que
It's very curious how this perspective is amplified. When I met Tiama, I was saying, but because you occupy a space, you're a pioneer. And she said, no, Andrea, a lot of things happened before. Many black women had to pass through a long process for me to be here in this pioneering space in internet between ashes. So I return the question to Gabi because she always says that she is at internet because she wanted to produce a content to herself. So a lot of people that follow Gabi for a long time, she has contents produced that are very interesting and admirable. For example, contents like acting on my face, one of the best seen most watched videos. So how does it work? This kind to build and to create this kind of content that other people will consume, and how is it to produce this content for them to have them identify in a little bit, and how is to remain in this kind of content. I think that when I talk about our history, I think we're always thinking of who came before and praising these persons, honoring them. And I believe this turns our work more serious when you stop and reflect and you understand where you come from and where you want to go. This makes you assume a responsibility of what you publish at internet. I'm not saying that all the contents are serious. I have, for example, a gossiping group. It's not that. But even in the gossiping group, I have a responsibility with my community. This responsibility never leaves me, and I don't carry it as a weight. I think we need to be responsible. Today, we talk a lot about self-care, but I'm very concerned about the individualistic discourse that is important. We as Black women know how much is important to exercise our self-love, self-esteem, but the self-esteem cannot stop only in this idea of self-care. Bell Hooks talks about that. We have to look at our community. This love that is action must expand. And in a capitalist, individualistic society that incentivizes us to look at the individual and not the community, I think we should be concerned when we think that to have a responsibility is a weight. I don't think it is a weight. It's a necessity. We have social functions and roles. It's important to understand these functions. When I think about a content, I usually speak very joyfully that when I look at my historic at YouTube, and also when I look at the effects, because people can also search by subject, topic, I'm very happy to see that the content there is achieving a lot of people in the past years and is still achieving the persons today, 2024. And this is very admirable in a world where we see rapid videos. You treat a topic, and afterwards the topic gets cold and nobody remembers anymore. But you know that you build a history, a historic, and people can watch again, be influenced again, and be moved again. I think this is the most important part of my work today. So the responsibility that makes me maintain my work. I'm a very introspective person. I like to be at home, but I like also to be at home at these spaces, because when I talk to people, I understand the strength of our work, because if we don't think about this potentiality of social transformation, personal transformation, it's impossible to continue. It's an environment that is very hostile. We are Black women, and our lives have already presented us a lot of difficulties. And if you are in an environment that is not very welcoming, when I was at the internet, I had finished university. I was 23 years old. I was older than the children, of course. And I already loved you when I was an adolescent. So I went to the internet. I was very, very strengthened. I had passed through a hair treatment. I was getting in contact with the Black writers, and I was really thinking about sharing these messages. But working with the internet really made me sick a lot, especially when I worked with the beauty industry. I passed through many difficult situations that made me doubt myself many times. I went to give an interview, and the one responsible for the makeup asked me, well, they asked me if I knew how to make up a Black woman, but I didn't know it was one with the color of a telephone. And they used to say that they couldn't adjust the light for my skin tone. So they cut me from the commercial. So a lot of difficulties to arrive in 2024 and see that it was worth it. No, I don't like this because I don't think we needed to pass through these situations. But when I look at other adolescent girls occupying this space, showing their hair, their color, I see how meaningful was to have the courage to start and to persevere. So, yes, at the end of the day, it was worthy. And I'm very happy to be here talking about this and seeing all the faces that I see only at the internet, only by the small image of the profile. And today I'm meeting these people and understanding that they are real stories. We're dealing with the real stories.
Fazendo resumo da.
So, Maria, I'd like to complement. I'm making the summary of the following because Tiama's content has always been a very joyful content, even when she is enraged or something. And sometimes she takes this hate and this hater that arrives and she makes fun of this hater. She says, okay, so you didn't like me on bikini, so I'm going to get here every day in bikini. So what is for you the production of this content based on everything that you said on these challenges? There, something that I understood and that I couldn't be stopped by that. We are not educated to be loved. We are not educated to believe that we are going to be successful. Nobody, Gabi's family said to her, yeah, make video, you're going to be successful. My parents, no, your parents don't count. They have always said, but you're a mother and you know. Because mother is out of reality. We say everything. My child, she draws, and I say, marvelous. Okay, Picasso loses beside you. But I'm talking about what is around us. When I'm talking about education, we have to understand that education is not only our place, our house. We're educated by society. And society as a whole sees us as a strange body that shouldn't be in some places. So I got into the internet a little bit older than Gabi. She was 23 and I was, right? So I was stigmatized for being an older woman. And internet for me was a place to relax where I would just talk about nonsense. But I was a reporter at the Jornal da Tarde, the afternoon news. And I was the police reporter. So when I start at internet, I started being ridicularized by my colleagues of profession because they thought that to be a blogger was something small, like if I weren't intellectually capable. You didn't have anything to offer, as if you were recording nonsense at the internet, especially me. I was coming from a more serious place, the street activism in Bahia. I was known, respected. I was a national director of some entities, of some parties. And when you start at the internet, it seems like you are diminishing yourself. So, underestimating yourself. So, all of a sudden, we're talking about Quilombo, I started to notice and realize, and I started talking more about relationships. I was talking about relationships because it always bothered me this place that the black women should accept anything in the relationships. Okay, Lari, sorry, am I speaking too fast? I start to be enthusiastic, get enthusiastic, sorry. So I've always been concerned about this idea that black women needed to accept anything. And many times this that Gabi said, I think that she should speak alone because she's a wonderful, tall, She has a lower voice. So you observe that all the time that she says, she mentions an author, because of course she has a literary framework. It's not here today. It's with her for a long time. And maybe she doesn't even notice, because it seems like that we have to prove that we are not here for nothing, that we have an intellectual production, and that we know what we're talking about. It's something that we do. I need to prove that I'm not unbalanced. I know what I'm talking from, that I researched and I studied. But I'm not going to get last because I get enthusiastic. I have this problem. I start speaking about the children at home. But I've always been concerned about this way they used to look at our bodies, the solitude of the black women. And usually, many times they talked about this solitude. They used to say, to escape this loneliness, you have to accept anything. And I started to say, no, no, no. You don't have to just live with small things. You have to tell your partner what you want and how you want. Free yourself, right? You don't have to accept anything that you don't deserve. So I started talking from these spaces. So when the haters started arriving, I started to remember my activism time that I was beating, and it's very good to know that the hater, Andrea, is part of my life since the day I was born. I'm the girl that didn't want to dance with in the São João. Hate is part of my story. Nobody at the internet is going to call me old woman, and it's going to impair me, and it's going to stop me from producing. The hater imposes me. You're going to say, okay, all right, you're going to see. So in the Northeast, when we call someone a disgrace, is something very strong. It's because this is really a disgraceful person. So I understood that each hater was a bullet that wanted to reach me. And it's going to be with these bullets that I'm going to build my shelter. And sometimes it hurts me when I see people that I believe that can be a problem of mine, people that should be with me, maybe. This is the hater that really hurts more. But I have to live with my frustration about it, with what I learned about it. This is the hater that makes me sick. The haters that don't look like me, these haters are historic. It's not going to end. Because these haters, the historic ones, they will never reach me because I know where to come back to. I know my history. I'm not actress. Before I came here, I brought my ancestrality behind me. Wherever I go, they go with me. So if you want to attack me, I know I have the ones that's going to respond with me. Okay, just a pop-up. I remember when I met Tamara, a friend of mine showed me. And she said, look, Andrea, it's like this. It's smoothly. It's just to say that you don't want. And Tiama was working with the contents related to relationships. She said, listen to Tia Maria. And I used to say, yes, that's true. Okay, now I'm going to try to make a question to Gabi and Tiama. If you want to talk one after the other, that's okay. He's still in this concept of Beatriz. When she's telling what Quilombo is, she says that Quilombo is the land, is the sustaining. So managing the land is a work of women. Women is managing who does this, who does that, who sleeps where. So I associated with this process that she said about adopting this, and it really moved me. The persons that consumes this content, and she made this planning. She made us followers participate of this plan. She made a video talking about the house, talking about how she thought about education, and she started planning. And this really moved me, not because when I was watching the videos, I it's not because I was also planning to have children, but I realized, well, that's it. Black women also can have a planning, also can have an organization to have children, even being difficult. I also had a very difficult history. My mother was a widow very early with 4 children. We didn't have money. We had to take care of each other. But when I saw Gabi, that woman that was planning, I said, well, so nice. So my question is, how do you still keep this planning, the necessary one? And what are the challenges? The challenges, the dialysis, to enjoy this planning. It's what you are showing now. Is it working well? Of course, there are some issues, but you are keeping this planning. Well, I'm a Capricornio. I think that this says a little bit about my plannings, my organization, but very interesting that you bring this because you brought in the other panel. Why? Because when you put the content on the network, we don't have the dimension of where this content is going to get and how. For example, I'm very proud, but today I look at this process of adoption in a very proud way because I can see that a lot of people tell me how much this content, how much these videos changed their lives. When I started recording the videos about the process, Carol, I'm going to send you. She sent me a message. I watched your video about the license, the driver's license, but now I am going to do it. And I said, oh, it arrived the time of my driver's license. It's time to do it. And then she sent me a picture. Oh, my baby arrived. So to take part of this step by step is so interesting. So I'm very proud of sharing this process. Maybe I've been the first Black person to share a process like this, but I didn't have this dimension of the planning because I shared in a very natural way this preparation for maternity and that it can be a preparation for other aspects of life. So when I decide to share, it goes a lot in the sense of the beginning of my work to show that our existence is plural, that we make different decisions, that we don't need to follow a script, the established script, theoretically. Because when we discuss this issue of the Black women, that for such a long time we talked a lot about it.
I felt like this is a place of non-choice. We're all in a space like whatever comes, we have to accept, right? We have to do. We have to do what we can, and maybe sometimes people wouldn't notice how cruel it is. Like we didn't have any choice for us. Like we had to accept, in fact, everything that comes. And sometimes this is what we were treated. And when we'd say like there are other ways, not only in terms of affection, but and also in general for black population, we're lonely in so many spaces. And when I bring this vision of life, it's because really this is a place for sharing of what I believe in. And I was talking to someone before in internet, guys. I think that around 40, 45 years old, I'm gonna get married. Maybe I will want to get married. It's not something like because, but many people that follow me that are in their 30s, they think like, oh my God, my life is over. Nothing's gonna happen for me from this moment on. And I think it's really important for us to bring this light to the light stories, our stories that break this paradigm, not in a very forced way, but natural. And when you're talking about this, the other time, sometimes when I'm giving interviews, the journalist already comes with a pre-told story, of a lot of suffering, of how you came out from extreme poverty to becoming a content creator. And I always respond like I've always had a very good familiar structure. My parents stimulated me. They've always told me, that I could go wherever I wanted. And I was born in a middle class. My father was a public officer, and then he was fired, and then we became a little bit poorer. But I had a very well-established structure at home. And maybe people already come with a pre-judgment about you. And this is, I'm gonna, I have to tell you today, the content that I post in social media is really based on the responsibility that I have to not give up to the algorithm or to the idea that people, that people want me to tell. And I commented this before. In terms of adoption in internet is like showing, sadness. Look at my son crying, remember when he was in the shelter, and look how I rescued these children. Look at how my sons lived before. This is what creates engagement, because people want to see us suffering. They forget about the children's right, the history, the image, the narrative that you were placing there. So I am very proud of not having given up, because for me to arrive to 1 million followers, that will be easy. Let's just put my kid there crying and say, oh my God, how I am, how I feel sad. Look at how I act. That's how people do nowadays. People are like throwing themselves to the floor and turn on the camera, because I don't know what kind of time this person has to, turn on a camera and film a moment of crisis of a child, and you show how good mother you are because you respect, because you sit down and you talk and you don't hit your kid. I know how it works, but is this the way I want to follow? Is this the path I want to follow, that respects a path that respects this other black body? These are kids that that deserve their rights. They are entitled to have rights, and I feel that my purpose and that my articles are well established regardless of the content I am producing. And it's important for us to see ourselves as in a place of well-being, good living, of choice, of understanding. I was talking to Tia Madre. I love the pictures of your trip, and I'm not romanticizing your life and showing off. I'd hate to show off. But it's a narrative. It's a way to show that, yes, there is a possibility for us. We can plan ourselves, We can be happy even if we didn't get married. Or we may get married and have a kid after a certain age because, our lives are plural, and it's important for us to notice this. This is what internet brings, this possibility that before was so restricted to the traditional media. Always the same roles, always the same narrative of what it is to be a black woman. And now we have many different narratives, many different um, ideas and possibilities for us to follow, to mirror, and criticize, but in a very correct way, Chama. I want to ask you about some, gossip. I cannot ask you here, later on, privately. No, you have to tell me if it's gossip. It has to be, in a separate way, in a separate place. I want to know it as well. So my papa for Gabi, really, in terms of this, in terms of adoption process, because I saw this respectful thing happening because she was in the videos, and we were seeing only a hand, she was deciding that she would only show the faces of the children when she was actually declared a mother, received the certification, and we were there like waiting for it. And one day this video came out, and I was in my job, and I started to cry, and then a colleague came, Andrea, what's going on? And I couldn't almost speak, Oh my God, Gabi's child. Cool, but she knows my family, and she didn't understand. But who's Gabi? Your cousin? No, Gabi. Because that's it, And sometimes you go on and you start understanding. I wouldn't expecting differently, I knew she wouldn't expose children in a very wrong way. And now I'm gonna address a question to Maíra. So, bringing this Beatriz thing, historically, how the black people have this right, denied rights of the land. Man, they took out of us so much. And, in terms of comparison and adaptation of how we live today, having arrived to this very important place in the world level, we're talking about social media, national projection. And Maíra, she has already elaborated on it, how it is to be a black woman with an opinion, and that bothers. There are many things happening, and let's understand what's my opinion. Chiama has her own opinion, and we understand that this is a process, like it brings several layers. The sexism, when the woman says something, it bothers. When it's a black woman, it bothers even more. And I want to add the third layer, a black woman from the Northeast who also occupies this place from Piauí. Ana Beatriz is from Sergipe, exactly. And that's it. Like, for instance, how is it, Chama? This bothering of this thing, and how you have been accessed or not to be in the southeast. In being in the southeast means you are, in a center of power in Brazil. Do you do something, in order to be accepted by the market? How does the market, react to you? Are you willing to do concessions, So let's get you only producing content to the Northeast. How is it going on for you? I'm still a black woman. So when I arrive to places, the first thing people see is my body. I cannot make concessions because I don't want to deny my history. I don't gonna change my accent, and I want to be, ridicularized because of that. And I don't accept to be ridicularized because I'm Baiana. Because this is stereotype closes doors to me. I don't have open doors. My life wasn't easy. I couldn't make any concession. And in the same way, I feel like it's an absurd Gabi not being in the top 10 in internet. And I'm not saying this because I'm here beside you. I've told this to you several other times. And we know why you're not there. We know. And I am very aware that if I were not who I am, if I didn't say of what I say, if I didn't position myself the way I do, my life would be easier. That's the truth. And knowing that people want to know my opinion, this is not something that waits. This is a responsibility. This is not a burden. And sometimes I don't have the same opinion. And sometimes that touches me. I'm going to show you two situations that are really painful for me. There was a slaughter in Gamboa, a neighborhood in Salvador, and it was a day. I can give you some examples. I remember it now. And this day I decided I was going to be absent because I wanted to give attention to my kids. And suddenly, when I got my cell phone at the end of the day, I was, having fun with my kids the whole day, and I was being attacked. And I didn't even know what had happened. And I was being attacked because I didn't say anything about that theme. And nobody ever even imagined that maybe I just didn't know about it. And these things started, and I couldn't, live aside the cell phone. I was grabbing my cell phone the whole time. I cannot, omit myself. So I started to charge myself that I had to pressure myself to have an opinion about things. And Bia saved me. And this is very new for Black women. I don't want to have an opinion for everything. I cannot be able to talk about everything. I cannot, elaborate about everything that happens in the world. And there is this other situation, a big publishing house threw a party, put a lot of Black women dressed with Baiana dresses, and there was a chair for guests to sit down that reminded us of these slavery, chairs. And at that time, I was living in Plataforma. We had a shortage of light, and I had to go to the supermarket for the whole month. I bought things for the whole month, and suddenly we had this power outage. And I was desperately to find someone who had, some ice for me to put the meat. And my son was a kid at that time. I was desperate. My son was crying because he wanted to watch TV. There was nothing for him to do. I don't let them out on the street so much because he's Black. And I was trying to find something, to save my meat in the freezer and help my son. And at the end of the day, I think in the middle of the afternoon, when I could actually place my meat in this ice, and I wanted to, nobody knew I was trying to help. Nobody realized I was going through so much struggle, and people were thinking that I was, silent because I didn't have received an invitation for the party. And people think they know about your life. Every time I post pictures with my husband and I stay a while, sometime not posting anything, people think that I'm suffering. People start to say, "I thought you had gotten divorced." And people, for instance, when people got to know I was pregnant, they didn't even know I was married because, I wasn't entitled to have a family. And I have a perfect family. I am a loved woman, and I know I am loved. I'm not saying that my marriage is shit. I mean, all marriages are shit, or all of them are terrible because. And there's always this moment when we ask ourselves, why have I married this person? And then right after you say, I love this person. And in the middle of the conversation, you start to hate the person again, And this person irritates you. And this same person that irritates you is the one that calms you down. And I have a son who is beautiful and very intelligent, perfect, educated, even because if he does not behave properly, he knows what's going to happen. If he does not greet people, I'm gonna, call his attention and make him greet everyone when he arrives in places, And I have a daughter-in-law that is wonderful. And I call her mother sometimes and tells her mother, why did you get divorced from him? You know, and people don't expect that I have such a, beautiful family. People like to see us suffering. And once people asked me if I was the first person in my family to have, a degree in university, and I said no. And people asked, but who other than you then? And I said, I have a doctorate in a family. And people, this person said, okay, like as if I were lying about it. And I said, yeah, I have a doctorate and a lawyer in my family. And my uncle, Everaldo, he's still, alive. And he was in my mother's birthday and he arrived like dressed up as a prince. And because in people's head, having an organized life, planned life, within all this context, that is the perfect life. This is not what people expect from us. And so I have to be all the time thinking and how they will accept me, but also thinking what I want for me, because there's no escaping or agreement when I'm a black woman. The national projection that I actually have right now, I know it's low. If I were not who I am, if I didn't say the things I do, it would be easier for me to shut down and I'll say more. Often, people silence us. I know a lot of people, and then people say, people, this guy when became rich didn't want to, doesn't say anything anymore about the social, issues. And we are tired of being beaten up, because when you're saying things that people want, they are with us. But when you're being beaten, when we are suffering, when we are struggling, when people are beating you because they think they know your story, they don't know about the problems in life you're facing. And nowadays, as Gabi said, there is another reality. But I didn't start here. When you asked me, I have to go back to my house because I am the one who care about my daughter. My mother is there, my old mother. I don't want to have to desperate because my mother is there. And in people's mind, I have this life of a princess, and I would like to have this life. And I used to say that I want that all women could have the life that I have now because I have a very dignified life. People think I live of desperation because often I accept whatever came, there were times when I accepted whatever came. Several times I accepted whatever could come because I had to feed my son. And I'll tell you more. I'm a black woman. Do you really think that I have a national projection and I'm not being bitten right now? Do you think that several times I call my house saying, take me away from here? Get me out of here? Do you really think people like me? Do you really think that I don't know that people don't like me? And it's really cruel to know that you're not welcome in the place because they really make it clear that's not what they want, They make it clear that they don't like us, and we understand it. But, and when we were there, because nowadays, I'm sure that Gabi can say about this, I could simply, don't go there again. But I also understand that I need to be there to, provoke. And by occupying these spaces, I can say to certain provocations because I know the extent of my voice, but it has not always been like this. And people who don't know the story, and when I see my similars laughing at our provocations, because we talk about self-hate from a very far away place, but we are always also victimized by the self-hate, and we feel pleasure when we follow people being beat up, being, failing. We feel, good to say, see, did you see what happened to him? You know, do you remember moments in which you feel like good when people are failing? Teresa, come here. I think you. Very few people know that Creuza was the founder of the Domestic Worker Foundation, and many things that the Black domestics have today was created by Creuza, and Creuza will build history. And I am very thankful for you. You're part of my formation when I was going to 2 de Julho. I heard of you so many times. In the beginning of the 2000, you helped Maíra Azevedo. I am here because you exist. What you did in the syndicate of the domestic world, many people don't know. You created the syndicate, and you're going to become history. And you did it. Thank you so much. Later on, Creuza will be in the next round table. We still have some more minutes, but that's it. It's just some sort of a lot of potent Black women. We've already kneeled for Conceição, you know. Let's just add up. Let me just add up to it. I think that we have to be worried with the fact that we should not reproduce what oppresses us. And I have some sort of, you know, a fear of this Black's excellent, this top, and the Black people that are on the top, because you end up several times thinking that you are in the top and reproducing the same oppression that oppressed you some years ago. So sometimes we're in very hostile places, and we know they are hostile. But it's very sad when we get into an environment that is ours, with people like us, with our paths and journeys similar, and we find this reproduction of this idea of superiority. So I think it's worth it to take care, because when we arrive we'll have power in our hands, we won't simply, you know, follow what others do and reproduce oppression. So let's, you know, be aware with open eyes. And this is so much important. And that's it, you know, how you can, you know, what Shama said about therapy, because that's it. It's a balance. It's trying to understand we are not here to talk about this, but what happens in common with other Black people that, you know, ascend. And we know we're not going to go into details, but there are some cases in which, you know, you see that happening, and we have to get prepared. I think it's something very important what you said, and very important for me, because I am trying to build this content, not the content itself, but the space, you know, it's behind us. And sometimes some things come to me, you know, and I really don't believe, are we going, you know, to reproduce this behavior from other people that are treating us like this, you know? So I think now I'm gonna take this conversation to a more, you know, entertaining side. May 11th, we had a panel with Conceição Evarista and Helena Teodoro, who were two women who are contemporary of Beatriz. They were friends. Conceição tells us, and they told us a lot of stories. And in this panel is in our YouTube channel, if you want to go there and, you know, resume this conversation. And there was some sort of gossip in the end, because Conceição, both of them actually, told us of how Beatriz had this emotional, she was, you know, passionate. She would go to congresses in Salvador and wouldn't come back because she fell in love with I don't know who, you know. Like, people goes to Salvador one day and then goes back again. You know, we have Salvador, you know, has this, some sort of magic. Why don't you think I'm there? You know, and there is it's a beautiful poem of Conceição telling you know, talks about it, of her and Beatriz living life, you know, getting the salary and going to the bar to drink. And you also told us a little bit about this side, but please elaborate on this joy of living, which is something that is very present in your content. You know, Gabi, you go and do some stupid thing, buy something wrong, and starts to laugh, and people give you nicknames. And how this happiness, the joy of living, is natural. It's not, you know, rehearsed. How do you show this? So I understood that joy and happiness is a revolution for the black body. I want to talk about good things too. First of all, internet modulates you to say things, tense things, and very difficult ones. But then I understood, because it's very sad, unless Gabi doesn't pass through this, but to post happy moments, trips, positive moments of your life, it's not good to internet when you're black. It's like posting, you know, I'm happy here with my family eating meat. You know, this is not good for us. If you're concerned about your engagement, this does not sell. You don't get likes. You get even attacked. But I think it's important to show this place, you know, like of this joy and achievement, and to celebrate my son. I love to post videos how I love my son, and I treat him as a baby because I think he's a baby, even though he's 16. Because this happens in real life. We need to show that that woman who's there thinking and that wants to revolutionize, she also wants to play, to have fun, drinks alcohol and go and hang around with a lot of men. And now I'm married, okay, so don't think about it, but Maroca has had a lot of men, you know. Please, nobody recording this, right? But I have always been a very shy and modest person, you know. And I think it's so important to say about all these achievements and have a gossip group and say, even because I think you have a gossip group and this is the most respectable way of talking about someone. And I always say there are things that we cannot say on the internet, right? It's not because you're being false. It's because you understand how the space works. If I know about something bad about Gabriela, I won't go to the internet to tell. I can tell to my friends, you know, your best friends. I have Bal Bem-vindo, I have Magali, Diogo. I have my best friends, you know, I can tell them, do you know about this? About what Gabi said that? And this is respectful. I'm not going to go to internet because when I do this to Gabi, I will, you know, erase what the good thing she did, you know, the good thing that she does, for instance, about adoption. So this is caring about her, and sometimes we don't even notice when we talk about displeasure or seeing the defeat of the other. When I arrived here, I was nostalgic because the last time I came here, oh my God. I'm gonna stop here because I am a mother with 2 kids. So I'm living, and I live a lot. And I say until today to my husband, I love you, but you know, my grandmother was a widow at 44 and never married again. And how could she do it? You know, she never had anyone else after him, because if I were here in the desert, I'm looking for something else to eat. I'm not going to be hungry. There's always a sausage for my hot dog. If there was no sausage, you know, and sfiha, because we're not going to be hungry, right? If you don't follow, follow, because there's a lot of this in her Instagram, right? I think it's a pleasure to share happiness. I believe that is part of the naturalization of our existence, our several faces, contradictions in the gossip group. Who, for the ones who were there in the channel, sometimes I publish things and then I erase. Let's not dig into this now, but I love to gossip about people who are far away, not people from here because it's really problematic. But it's very nice to notice that even if I am not the preferred for the algorithm, if I'm not the most wanted of my followers because I lost a lot of followers, it's really good to see how many people are happy when we share happiness. They are cheering for us, they are happy with our happiness. So I started to focus more on these people regarding the other people that are sending me hates, because these are the people who consider your life inspiring, and they consider that is worth it, to go on in life, to plan, you know. And today, when I think about my sharing, I think I share joy because I'm a very positive person. I'm very happy. And I, of course, share also sad stories. Last year, I had this depression episode that I told about this depression I was going through in the network. And I always say it's not easy to be a solo mother, sustain a house, has to have this responsibility today, which is the biggest one in my life, to say that I am the one who provides for my family and having to take care of all the other aspects of education and etc. This is not simple, and I talk about it. But as Gemma said, I think I have a very good life now, and I don't have any reason why I should arrive at the internet. I mean, I have reasons. I would earn more, if I did this, but I don't want it. Okay. Have you ever thought about what? Ah, network for social media for my kids? No, no way, because this is, making money. People are making money with, having a social network for their kids. Each kid who is born, I'm totally against, and I got beaten. And no, no, I I don't I'm not happy for people who are betting. The ones ours who are betting and making money. People that are buying mansions. They needed to explore the public. And this is, no, I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna be there saying I'm gonna celebrate the happiness and richness. No, I'm not gonna celebrate people getting rich like this. But at the same time, I noticed that taking this decision leads to consequences. I feel this, Gemma. If I had another speech, more flexibility in some aspects, I would be bigger. I would have more money, but I am attached to my responsibility, and I want to sleep with peace. There is no money that could pay for your peace. You cannot trade your peace for money. I did not, damage my community. I didn't damage my kids. I didn't start an internet when I was a mother. But now, whatever I do, I think about my kids, how it is going to impact their future and their image of me, because children learn mirroring us and not with what we say. So today I have even more responsibility and responsibility with myself when Aunt Ma says about not producing only because of the demand, following your demand. And nowadays, today, I have no conditions, to create a video when a bullet, hits a child. I'm gonna reverberate other people talking, but that child it's so much similar to the one I have in my house. And I'm sorry if I'm gonna, disappoint you by not being able to get the microphone and talk about some situations. Because I feel like we're living in a moment when it's very important to be there, producing. We're seeing being referenced, but a reference that the production that won't damage and hurt my values. This is my motto today, and it's very strong. We're arriving to our conclusion of this panel, and I have two questions, but I understand that the first was already answered. If you think that we have a virtual Colombo, so we understood how this Colombo is built and unbuilt, and how can we keep it standing. And I'm gonna ask about the name of this panel, which is They Can Everything. And it means so much and means nothing at the same time. So I'd like to ask you what, when you read, this name, the title of the panel, Chiama said about what it was to her when she arrived, the invitation per email. What did you think when you read this title? What was the answer that you gave? You can everything. We can do anything, everything. I think it was, bold, because I think it's an affirmation, very bold. And I'm very rooted in the earth. I'm realistic, and I know that within a society based on racism and chauvinism, I cannot do whatever I want. But I'm also certain that within my possibilities, I'm doing what I can, and that's very important. You understand that? Yes, you're gonna face many barriers, many issues that will try to divide you, and then sometimes get to do it. But more than what you can produce, you can do for a society more egalitarian, more just and equal. And I am doing what I can for that, and that makes me feel okay. And I think a lot about future, especially with two kids. I realize they cannot do everything. My son, the other day, for instance, faced this situation. We were in a restaurant and he wanted ice cream. And he went to the place where they had, the freezer with the ice cream, and they got it. And automatically, there was, this employer thinking that he was stealing. The kid did not realize. But since I was all taking a look at all this movement of people, I stood up and went there and explained. And I know that he's a black kid that cannot do whatever he wants. But within our household, he can be who he is. He can express himself the way he wants. And this is very significant for me because it's part of my my raising. That's it. My parents in my house, even though they knew all the barriers I was going to face outside, they made me believe that I could choose, that I could, take decisions, choose what will be my path, my journey. And nowadays, when I think about this power, this is the power I want to pass on to my kids, because inside our house, they know they have a place to come back. And this is very important when we're talking about building Colombos and escaping. You're creating a base. Some people, don't have a biological family, and put effort in trying to build a place where you can come back to, where you can find people who will tell you you can do it, go on. This is really pivotal. And I'm saying this in a very individual and collective way. When sometimes what we need is to come out of this place of only looking to ourselves and the other and saying, and you have to be able to say, you can do it. When I saw this sentence, Andrea, and I think that maybe today people are associating me to humor, but I'm also very realistic as well. And I don't have any issues with talking about my feelings, real ones. You can always be happy every time. If a person is like this, please take care. There is no way you can be happy forever, especially when you're aware of issues regarding class and gender and race. My life would be better if I didn't have conscience. A very plain brain. This is my dream. And when I read this title, I think it was utopic. Even there was an exclamation mark. As the opposite of Gabi, I am realistic too, and I was educated with this thing that my parents saying that places that I don't belong. And it's important when they say this. One of my parents was saying, you cannot go there. It was to try to keep me alive. When my mother was saying it's better to, straighten my hair since I didn't want to brush it. It's because I just wanted to use my hair as a black hair. And she was just trying to keep me alive. She was trying to prevent me from getting bitten outside. And so I understood this very early in my life. But to the extent of my possibilities of what was possible, I was transforming my possibilities in everything. And now, being mother to a black son and a black daughter, I'm always thinking about how I'm going to try to raise in a very similar way. Because I think that the streets are very hostile to my kids. I'm really in love with my kids. I am passionate about my kids. It's very painful to say to my son that he cannot go to an airport. I don't know what's the name of the thing. Because the day he did, the guy started to follow him, and he was a teenager, and I started to say, "Come, son." And I was behind him, following him, and he was feeling bothered, of course, because he was being treated like a child. And I had to turn to him, and I'm very realistic, and I said, "Shit, I'm trying to show the guy that you were with me and you're a teenager. You're feeling this is very bad, but the guy is following you, because I wanted to embarrass the guy." And this happened so much. And how many days I felt so bad when I shout to my son because I had never done this. But at the same time, I couldn't. But I want to build a world in which it is possible for them to at least dream that they can do whatever they want. I'm a mother to a boy, and I need to say to him that the streets are hostile. Have to be concerned about his hair, about his clothes. There was a slaughter in Bahia. One of the boys murdered, and they made pictures. And if you go to Salvador, please don't take pictures with numbers in Salvador. And as a mother, the first thing was to say, for Christ's sake, when you take pictures, put your hands in in your pocket. And it's hard to know that my son doesn't have the right to live. And when he's going out, I'm always concerned about his clothes. And he's 16, and now his body, he's a target. He's very black, very, very black, and as a color. And when he was going to the bakery the other day, he came back, and I said, and I asked why he was coming back, and he said, "No, I came back to get my documents. Have you ever seen a black man without documents on the street?" And then I started to laugh because it seemed like a joke. But when a moment after, I started to cry because he's already concerned and aware of this. And I have a black girl, which is not so black skin, and light black, let's say. And he was there, he was trying to brush her hair with something like people do with women with straight hair do. And I had to say to her, "You cannot do this because this is a straight hair and these things don't work in your hair." And it's very painful to say it. My mother is a professor, and she's gonna be very upset to me right now because I want him to be aware and conscious, that they have a mother that is available for everything, to give them everything that is possible, by being what we are, that they could do whatever they want. And I'm not fighting only for my kids. I want other black kids, There was this João Pedro case, and João Pedro died in the same week of the birthday of my kid, and I got desperate because I thought João Pedro was very similar to my son, and every time a black boy dies, I cry. I'm becoming, sad. All that happy Maíra people knew. From the moment I have this conscience and I follow the news, I cannot be happy all the time. Another day I went to a party and I wasn't feeling well because I'm being conscious of things and I started to get desperate. And when I say that, I am the one at home and I want to take care of my kids and my daughter. It's because since the streets are hostile for my son, house can be the violent place. Maybe not my house is violent to her, a violent environment, but maybe other houses in the future might be violent to her. So she needs to have a house full of affection because when she will be in a place, hostile place for her, she will know that that's a place where she should not stay. And they have a place where they can go back to. And I want them to have the option. I want them to be able to choose what they want to do. And I tell them every day, I can stay several nights without sleeping because I want you to achieve all your dreams. And I'm here to take care of your dreams. Guys, I think we have to conclude this panel. Maíra has to, catch a flight, and I'm gonna be very, really, and because people complain, and he has this face how he's going to complain about me later on. But I have to leave as soon as it ends because I have my flight at 3 p.m. and I have to go take care of my daughter, my baby girl, the teenager. Looks like parliamentary. He talks to you and want to vote for him because he convinces you. He comes with this conversation with difficult words, with very sophisticated words, and quoting authors. And the other day I told him, he starts to quote authors and. No, sometimes early in the morning, he comes to me and said, "Mom, do you know how the microwave works?" And starts to explain to me. And I say, I don't want to learn, but I have to listen to him and say, oh, how wonderful it is. And then my daughter, she is, incredible. She doesn't walk, she runs. She's a torpedo. And they start to fight, but he's 16 and she's 4, and they fight and they discuss like they were the same age, and I get desperate, and they fight because of a candy, and when they start to fight, it looks like she is 16 and he's 4, and I go crazy, and then I have to go back because my mother calls me, and my mother is my support network. And she says, I cannot handle your kids. And I say, for Christ's sake, please. And I know it's wrong, but sometimes I blame my mother. I take you a perfume. I give you whatever you want. Nobody was waiting for this end with so many real layers. Guys, thank you. I want to reinforce that you should stay here at the other side of the screen, and I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna thank you so much for you being who you are. and for you sharing this in a very respectful way. Close, so close to us. We're not friends, as you said, because I want to be in the pantheon, but we are close. I sent email, you came, and I want to thank you so much. Andrea, you're so generous, and your email was so beautiful. Maybe you're not conscious of how important it is for us to receive this type of text, this type of affection through words. You were immense and generous, because being where you are, many people choose to be distant as a way to create relationships, but you chose affection and embracing and welcoming people. So I want to thank you so much for this. Guys, I am gonna cry now. The staff, thank you for everything. So I think that's it. We're gonna conclude taking a wonderful, beautiful picture all together, and soon we'll have another panel. Thank you, guys. I'm gonna run. Do we have time for pictures? All right.